In this video, we'll explore the Toposolid tool in Revit. I'll guide you step by step on how to use it to create a three-dimensional site model. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Vlanka. I'm the principal at VERB Architecture Workshop. I also teach architecture at the University of Southern California here in Los Angeles. And without further ado, let's get started. Toposolid is a new feature introduced in Revit 2024, offering a significant improvement over the previous Revit topo surface for modeling topography and site conditions. Unlike topo surfaces, Toposolid function more like floors in Revit. They are solid elements with types, perimeters, and structural layers. Plus, they come with an enhanced topographic capabilities, allowing you to customize contour lines and refine site modeling with greater precision. To get started with Toposolids, let's create one from a sketch in Revit. First, navigate to the Massing and Site tab, and under Model Site, click the drop-down arrow beneath the Toposolid, and let's select Create from Sketch. This will switch a ribbon to the Modify tools. And similar to how you will create floors in Revit, let's begin by defining the boundary using the Draw tools. Next, in the Properties palette, you can choose a starting Toposolid type. If you're using the Revit Imperial Multidiscipline template, you'll find several preloaded options. And for this tutorial, I'll select the 16-inch grassland as our starting Toposolid. Once you've set the boundary and selected the type, let's click OK to finish the command. Now let's adjust the view to better visualize the Toposolid. First, go to the View tab and create a 3D view. Next, to see both the site plan and the 3D view simultaneously, use the shortcut WT or go to the View tab and then click Tile View. Finally, let's enhance the graphics by switching to Shaded mode. This will make the Toposolid easier to see and work with. Next, let's adjust the angle of the Toposolid. One way to create slope is by using the Slope Arrow tool. And to do this, let's select the Toposolid we just created and click Edit Sketch. Click on the Slope Arrow and then draw it in the direction you want the slope to go. In the Properties, you can define the slope either by percentage or by specifying the height at the tail. For this tutorial, I'll define it using the height at the tail. Notice that the slope percentage option is grayed out. Let's enter 20 feet in the height offset at the tail and then click Apply. Let's then click Finish Edit mode. And now you'll see the change in the slope in the 3D view. The slope contour also now reflects the new slope. Note that this method adjusts the entire Toposolid as a single inclined plane without maintaining the thickness of the topography layers. This method is similar to how the previous topo surface functioned. A more precise way to adjust the Toposolid is by modifying elevations using points and lines. To do this, let's select the Toposolid and then click Modify Sub-Elements. Click one of the points and let's change its elevation and set it to 20 feet. With this method, only the top surface of the Toposolid is modified, while the bottom surface remains intact, preserving the correct topography thickness. To further refine the shape of the Toposolid, you can add points for more localized elevation adjustments, split lines to create more control over slopes and transitions. When adding points or lines, you can choose between absolute elevation, which places the points based on the project elevation coordinates, or along surface, which places the points relative to the existing surface. And in the Modifier Elevation panel, you can also define and enter the elevation height directly if you are placing points and lines with the absolute option. You can specify how the elevation is measured in the elevation base. For example, if your topography height is offset from a specific level, you need to account for the offset when selecting current level as the elevation base. The same logic applies when working with Revit coordinates: project base point, survey point, and internal origin. Personally, I prefer placing points and lines along the surface and defining the elevation based on the top plane of the toposolids, as this method simplifies adjustment without requiring any kind of calculation based on the specified elevations and coordinates. In this next section, we'll create a toposolid from an imported AutoCAD survey. This method is useful when working with civil engineering surveys, allowing us to generate a more detailed and accurate topography in Revit. First, let's bring in this survey file. To do that, let's go to the Insert tab and then click Link CAD. Select the CAD file you want to use. Adjust the import settings based on your project needs. For this tutorial, I'll adjust my setting as import units to feet, correct lines uncheck to avoid any unnecessary line corrections. Positioning, I will do it at center to center to align my file to the center of my file. After you're done, click Open to bring the CAD file into Revit. Once the CAD file is loaded into your Revit project, we need to determine which layer contains the contour data. To do that, let's click on the CAD file in the drawing area. In the Modify tab, let's select Query. Click on the primary contour lines. This will display the layer name, and in my case, the primary contour lines are in the layer CTR index. Click on the secondary contour lines. For this file, the secondary contour lines are on the layer CTR. Now that we've identified the contour layers, let's generate the toposolid. So let's go to the Massing and Site tab. Click the down arrow under Toposolid, then select Create from Import, Create from CAD, select the Toposolid type. Revit will prompt you to choose which layer to use for the elevation points. Let's click Check None to deselect all the layers, then check the primary contour layer, which is CTR index, and then the secondary contour, which is CTR. After you're done, let's click OK, and then Revit will generate the toposolid from the contour data. Now let's see the 3D view of the toposolid that we just created. So to do that, let's go to View tab and then click 3D View. Select the toposolid in the model. In the Properties palette, you may notice that there is a height offset. This happens because the contour lines in the CAD file have an elevation offset. To correct this, simply adjust the height offset value to 0 in the Properties palette. Now that we created a toposolid from the CAD survey, let's refine it by splitting it into different terrain elements and adjusting its contours and materials. To clean up the workspace, let's temporarily hide the imported CAD file. To do this, let's open Visibility Graphics by clicking VG. In the Imported Categories tab, let's uncheck the CAD file we just imported, and then click OK to apply the changes. Next, let's split the Toposolid we just created to create a distinct element within our topography. To do that, let's go to Modify tab, select the Split tool or shortcut SL, click on the Toposolid, and let's draw a line across the area you want to split. Click OK, and then let's press Escape to exit the command. Now let's assign a new material to the split area. I'll designate this section as Water. Let's click on the Split section of the Toposolid, and then in the Properties panel, change the type to Water. Notice how the water retained the original contours from the Toposolid. Let's customize the contour display so that the water section does not show the elevation lines. To do that, let's select the Water Toposolid and then click Edit Type. Under Graphics, go to Contour Display, click Edit, then uncheck both the primary and the secondary contours, and then click OK. And to match the contour lines of the Toposolid to the CAD file we just imported, we can actually manually adjust them. To do that, let's select the Toposolid, then go to Edit Type, and then again Contour Display. Here, let's change this to match the primary contour to 20 feet and the secondary contour to 5 feet. To refine the appearance of the contour lines globally, we can modify the contour lines in the object styles. To do that, let's go to Manage tab and then select Object Styles. Under Model Objects, find Toposolid, type T to quickly locate it, then click the Expand button to view the contour line settings. Change the secondary contour line type to dash, and then click OK. If you only want to adjust the contour lines for a specific view, follow the same process in the Visibility Graphics instead of Object Styles. Now let's refine the material layers. For example, we'll add on an earth layer beneath the water area. To do this, let's select the Water Toposolid and then click Edit Type. Before editing, let's click Duplicate. This is best practice to avoid modifying existing type. And then let's rename it Water with Earth Base. Let's click Structure under Construction and then Edit. Click Insert to add a new layer. Assign Earth as the new material. And then let's define the thickness. Let's move the water layer to the top and set its function to finish. And let's check the variable to allow the adjustments. Let's click OK to apply the changes. At this point, you might notice that the edges of the water area have switched to earth and that they no longer align with the surrounding topography. So let's fix that. To maintain a clean separation between materials, the best workaround is to create a separate earth Toposolid and join it with the existing terrain. So to do that, let's go to the Masking and Site tab, select Create from Sketch, and use the Pick Lines tool to follow the boundary of the water area. Set the Toposolid type to Generic, which is Earth. Adjust the thickness and height offset to match the existing terrain. Now let's go to the Modify tab and select Join Geometry. Click on both the Water Toposolid and the Earth Toposolid to merge them seamlessly. Now let's explore the Subdivide tool, which allow us to add layers to our Toposolid without modifying its base structure. We'll use this feature to create roads within our site model. To do this, let's select the Toposolid you want to modify. In the Toposolid shaping panel, click Subdivide, and let's draw the outline for the road directly on the Toposolid. Now let's assign material to our subdivide. In the Properties panel, under Subdivision, assign a road material. Now let's adjust the height offset. Note that the subdivision height can only be set above the parent Toposolid, so negative or equal to 0 values are not allowed. This is something that I'm hoping that Autodesk will improve in the future updates. By default, subdivision inherit contour lines from the parent Toposolid, which may not always be ideal, especially for roads. In the Properties panel, uncheck Inherit Contours to remove contour lines from the road surface. Now let's go over on how to excavate a Toposolid in Revit. The first method is to excavate with a void extrusion. To do this, let's go to the Architecture tab, click Component, Model in Place, then select the Toposolid. Then let's name our void. In the Create tab, choose your void form type. For this tutorial, we'll use a void extrusion. Now let's draw the boundary of your void extrusion. And in the Properties panel, set the extrusion start and end to define the excavation depth. Let's then click Finish Edit Mode to complete the void. The second method is to cut the Toposolid with the walls and foundation. To do this, let's again select the Toposolid, and then under the Modify tab in the Geometry panel, let's click Cut, then select the Toposolid first. Then let's select the wall and footing foundation you want to cut with. Make sure you have the multiple cut checked. The third option is to excavate using floors. To do this, let's again select the Toposolid. And under Toposolid Shaping, let's click Excavate. Then select the floor you want to use to excavate. Now, Revit will automatically remove the portion of the Toposolid where the floor intersects with the site. The last thing I want to show you is how to bring a 3D site model into Revit as a Toposolid using Autodesk Forma. For a more in-depth tutorial on this process, make sure to check out my other video titled Autodesk Forma to Revit Toposolid, which you can find linked in the description below. To create the Toposolid using Forma, let's open the Forma Autodesk and create a new project. Then let's enter the address where you want to generate the 3D site. Then select the project area. Then confirm the map area. Now Autodesk will automatically generate the site. Now let's choose the elements that we want to include in our 3D site model. I'll add in the roads, terrain, and surrounding context building. Now let's export to Revit. In the proposal, right-click and then select Revit. If this is your first time importing from Forma to Revit, you'll need to download the Revit add-in. After installing the add-in, you can now send the Forma model directly into Revit. To load the proposal into Revit, in Revit, let's go to the Massing and Site tab, and under Forma panel, click Load Proposal. Make sure you've selected the correct proposal, then click Load. And that's it. This is a quick and efficient way to generate a 3D site model as a Toposolid in Revit using Autodesk Forma. You now have a detailed, context-rich site model that you can work with to start your project in Revit. Now let's adjust the graphics of the Toposolid we just imported from Forma. To do this, let's first remove any extra road lines. Then let's adjust the subdivision road. So go ahead and right click and choose select all instances in the entire project. And in the properties panel, change the material to road. Adjust the height of the subdivision and then uncheck inherit contours. And to adjust the Toposolid material, let's select the Toposolid, then click Edit Type. Under Structure, let's modify the layer material and adjust the thickness of each of the layers. Then let's change the contour display setting. To modify the appearance of the buildings and context elements, let's select a building and then right-click and choose Override Graphics in View by Category. Here you can adjust the projection lines, the surface patterns, and then the transparency if needed. Now let's adjust the graphic display. To do this, let's open the Graphic Display Option panel. And here we can refine the line styles, shadows, and lighting. You can also adjust the background settings. And if you like more tips in improving your Revit graphics, check out my other video on this topic, linked in the description. I hope you find this video helpful and insightful in understanding topography modeling using Toposolid in Revit. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Your support really helps the channel to grow. And if there are any specific architectural topics or tutorials you'd like me to cover in the future videos, feel free to leave your suggestion in the comments below. For more architecture content, make sure to follow us on all our socials. You'll find all the links in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.